This is a really special episode for me. I have been wanting to do this for a very, very long time. And why haven't I, you asked? It's because I can never catch you in town because you're always in Colorado or you're in Portugal or you are someplace exotic. This is one of my dearest friends and gardening mentors, Carol Blackwood. So, gosh, how long have we known each other?
Probably 40 plus years.
Wow.
40 plus
Or maybe
years.
more, 45.
Yeah. So to give you context, Carol lives just around the block, a street over and a block down from my former house. And we met, I think, through gardening circles, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Through gardening circles. And at that time, I knew absolutely nothing, and you knew absolutely everything. And to this day, botanical names and everything just roll off your tongue like, like a second language. The other thing you did for me, which has been just so influential in my life, is Carol was the one who introduced me to my good buddy Roger and John Fluitt. You knew them, you knew John when he was just getting out of school as a landscape architect. I know, and that's been a long time too.
Yes, it is.
So, okay, so tell us.
Since about the same time, just before I met you, not many years, maybe 5 years before I met you.
Yeah, 5 years. And Carol was one of the few people that had the rights to at any time enter my backyard with friends. And a number of times I'd be in my pajamas or, that's just what gardeners do.
It was a great privilege and something I prized because people always wanted to see Linda's garden. So I felt like I was very lucky.
Well, okay, so tell us just a little bit. First of all, Stuart, let's do a little sweep of this absolutely adorable house. And I'm going to point out, Carol's going to be leaving us. She's got an appointment, but I'm going to be pointing out some features that were very influential in my own home design at the former home and my new home now. So how many years have you lived here?
I've lived here since 1970. So I've lived here 54 years. And I was a total sun gardener when I moved here. And so I planted trees. And I planted a big tree just behind where Linda's standing. And it was here until 2 years ago when an ice storm damaged it. It was a water oak, and little did we know when we planted it was right over a natural spring. So it was one of the biggest ones in North Oklahoma City, and it took me a long time to let go of it. And I kept thinking it would recover, and it didn't.
Yeah, and it had.
So I went from total shade back to almost total sun.
And didn't you tell me that it was kind of a twofer because there was an ice storm, and then subsequently was the year that it got down to minus 18.
Yes. Wow. Within 6 months, there was a devastating early ice storm in October, and then in February we had this super frigid weather that went all the way through to South Texas.
Yeah.
And my oak tried to recover, but it was just meant to be, with a lot of help from
Roger, John,
Mark Bays,
who is the state arborist.
Yes, he is, and they were all very patient with me. And finally, I said, "Okay, I'm ready to let it go."
Yeah, it's hard. It is just
so everything you see behind Linda is all new since
just 2-3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago. Yes.
Yeah. It was quite the buzz in gardening circles when that tree was lost, and truly a real tragedy. But you're just a little bit more. Your son and daughter-in-law also live in the neighborhood.
Yes, they do.
And so it's very, once you.
And my in-laws live just down the street, so we have 3 generations of people living in this neighborhood, Crown Heights.
Yeah, and it was hard for me to leave, mostly because of people like Carol that I have known for such a long time and have such a history with. But you've been by my new garden,
Yes. And she's not far away.
I was about to say, it's
and
not too far.
Yeah.
I feel free to go in that garden.
She could go in that garden. Yes, yes, at any time. However, again, we'll go back to the beginning. That would be predicated on your being in town
Yes.
and in the States. And Carol has very graciously, because the inside of her home is every bit as magnificent as the outside of her home. And when she gets back from Colorado in September, then we might have to take a peek inside as well.
Well, it's a house from 1936, and it is really pretty.
Yeah, it's
I have
it's
no credit
wonderful.
for any credit for that. It's just a beautiful
It's
cottage.
just a beautiful home. Thank you, my
You're
friend.
very welcome.
Thank you. Oh, and by the way, I've sometimes talked about how when I hurt my back and I had to call one of my gardening friends to help get me out of the bathtub, this would be that gardening. This would be that gardening
Friends forever.
friend. Yes, friends forever. Well, this is one of, and has always been, one of my favorite houses in Crown Heights. It is, you talk about a quintessential English cottage, this is definitely it. And it's especially near and dear to me since it does house my good longtime friend, Carol. So I tell you what, let's start here and we'll kind of do a little sweep around. Now it's important to say that for this house, hers was built, I think she said in 1936,
Yep.
that she likes spots of color, but she has never liked a lot of color. She is really, typically, as long as I have known her, and it probably influenced my aesthetic, she's always liked just green on green. So a little bit about some of the plants here and how you can romance the ordinary. You can elevate very common plants if you use them in a good way and if you have a good enough soil prep. So this is just a ruby glow barberry, and she keeps this beautifully pruned so it doesn't go extremely prickly. And I can remember when we planted, I believe I helped her plant or at least design these rounded mounds of boxwood. These are wintergreen, they're in magnificent shape. And we wanted to do kind of a cloud thing here. And of course, when we put these in, they were very, very small, maybe 3-gallon size. And over the years, they have just grown magnificently,
Yeah,
and
they
they
did.
really ground the corner, and they did just that. It's low maintenance. She does travel a lot, and they gave her that kind of cloud effect that she wanted. And then, and I can't remember how long this possum haw holly has been here, but it's been here for a very long time, and she does keep it pruned up because, as she alluded to earlier, she had so much shade. So she keeps this pruned up so that what is growing underneath
That's
gets...
a holly?
That's a holly, a variety of, well, I don't know if it's a true holly, but it's called a possum haw. And that could be my question of the day. If you guys are more familiar with possum haws, let me know. It does put out beautiful berries. And then she has, I believe these are Valverde boxwood. These are, we don't see these in Oklahoma a lot. And she just did, Victor helped her do a really good maintenance prune on these, so they will start flushing out again. And I love the slight differential in the color, the kind of blue-green gray of this. It's pretty noticeable, isn't it, Stuart?
Yeah, you can definitely see it.
Yeah, and just the wintergreen, which is probably one of the least expensive, toughest evergreens that you can get. And then she's just got, I think I want to say this is a blue star juniper here with some purple oxalis. Just again, green on green, some sedums. She said she had thought she lost this variegated ivy, but it came back, she said, with enough time, it
Looks
came
good.
back, yeah. And then I was asking her, this is the kind of mailbox I used to have at the Fairy Tale House, and then she got this for her larger type of mail and things, and this is an old coal shuttle that she bought at an antique store in
cool.
Atlanta. It's pretty cool. Now, if if you recognize these steps in some fashion, it's probably because I have replicated to a certain extent these types of steps at both the Fairy Tale House and at the Storybook Cottage, because they just do that. I think very, very much they speak to that aesthetic. And then she's got the gorgeous lead glass windows. And her fixtures have always been fabulous. The fixtures, some of them were here, but a lot of them also, I think she has sourced over time in all of her travels. And then she also, it's interesting that she also has this love for very traditional, and again, she's a fabulous gardener, very traditional English gardening with boxwoods and things of that nature, but then you'll find surprising little pops of color like this canna, and tropicals. And then Stuart, if we come back out this way, well, I'll tell you what, let's take a little break, because I'm going to go get my sunglasses, because it's starting to get pretty bright out here. And then we'll do the sweep before we go to her absolutely magnificent backyard. Well, if ever there was a garden that is a testament to the fact that gardens are always changing, it would be Carol's, because it has undergone so many different iterations in style, in plantings, and even in the scale of the plantings over time. Starting with this ginkgo tree, which has been here for a very, very long time.
Oh, that's big.
It's gorgeous, one of the largest that I've ever seen. And if you stand back at the street, you'll notice that it's a little bit misshapen. It's very full on the east side, but not so much on the west side. That would be because previously this was in so much shade when that oak was here. Now it is slowly filling out on this side, and it will in short order hopefully be symmetrical. It's absolutely a gorgeous, gorgeous tree. And then down near the drive is a cedar elm, a multi-trunk cedar elm. And by the way, that was the trees Roger wanted to plant with a single trunk in front of my window, but you can, at the cottage window, but you can see how large in scale it gets, and I wanted more sun and less shade than that. Okay, so here are a few examples of elevating the common, romancing the ordinary. This is a $3 pine, some kind of Japanese pine that she bought 1,000,000 years ago. And if you follow the pine over that way, you see this is all one. This is all one plant. And of course, it was supposed to be a compact form when she bought it. And it was not. And as it started, isn't it amazing? As it started losing its lower limbs, then she trained it in this kind of Japanese way. This is another common plant that can really handle, now that this has so much more sun, this can really handle a lot of that south sun. And this is a rosy glow barberry, a very common variety that's been around for years, and the foliage is just beautiful.
I was just noticing how it looks like it has a purple look when you get closer.
Yeah,
it's totally multicolored.
Yeah, it's variegated, and the new growth is really,
so cool.
Really beautiful. And I'm sure this started out as just a very, very small shrub. Not anymore. This is a Japanese spreading yew. I used to have all sorts of these, a whole line of them in front of the curving wall at the Fairy Tale House. This one is the variety that I had, and look at how big it is.
Look at that trunk. Wow.
Yeah. And the trunk becomes exposed over time, and then there's another pine tree back here. And it just goes to show what you can do as something matures, and instead of, I think, it becoming unsightly, I think it develops character as it matures, and it really becomes graceful and beautiful in its old age, especially when things begin to grow together. These are peewee, not PG hydrangeas, she said. And back in the distance, you see just a Chinese holly that she said was also a compact form when she planted it. But au contraire, it had plans of its own. This area, she used to have lots of ivy growing in here. You can see some strawberry vine and things, and she's trying to slowly eradicate that, clean this out, and she's putting some of this golden sedum in here that she hopes will eventually fill this. She's got a limelight here that probably needs a little bit of iron from all the rain that we've had. It's chlorotic. You can see those yellowing leaves, so she'll give that some iron, I am sure. This is a 9-bark, which is beautiful, and I asked her, I said, so what are these growing back here, these suckers? And she said these are coming off of the 9-bark, and what she'll do is she will cut these back so you can see what's behind them, the different kinds of hydrangeas and the silhouette of some of the beautiful evergreens that are growing behind it. And then she's got a Canart juniper here. And these, yeah, right here, with the gorgeous berries.
You said Canart.
Canart. And these, by the way, are the plants that were installed to replace the mammoth oak that was here before. And she planted them in a rather mature size, as you can imagine, because she lost not only all of that shade, but she lost all of the privacy. And Roger and John helped her with that. These are gorgeous red twig dogwoods that in the fall are simply spectacular. And she has always liked, again, green on green, textural contrast, but she's also always liked kind of a little bit of an overgrown look. And I think it works with her home. There are some, those look like they might be white wedding hydrangeas back there. I'm not sure. Those are a southern living plant, along with some boxwood, and then some cedars that were installed again after she lost the trees, some native cedars. So they will be tough. She's got some kind of carex here. Looks like she's got some kind of oriental peony here. And then around the front, she has different kinds of, I think, maybe some faux bamboo, more sedum, again, just green on green things. This is in the process of maintenance and probably going to be getting some mulch here pretty soon. And that might be Transcantia, I'm not sure. Yes, I think that it is. I see the characteristic telltale seed heads. So it's all green on green, a little bit blue-green on green, but she is, as I said, just a fabulous gardener, and she likes things that are unusual or things that she's seen on her travels. And it's really, truly just a spectacular home. Now, you and I as gardeners, we both know that one of the most difficult things to grow in Oklahoma is just simply turf or grass. And I know that you, like me, have tried just about every variety under the sun, yes, in the shade, and over time it has changed a lot. But this is what you have now, and you said it's a combination of zoysia
near the street,
sun, yeah,
and then up the hill is, because of more shade, it's fescue.
Fescue.
And there are a few wild violets that I let bloom in the spring, just little baby ones, and then we cut them down.
Because they're really dear. I know that for a while this was largely fescue and a combination of maybe even a little bit of Bermuda, because that's when you had the tree here.
Yes.
And growing turf under the shade is just problematic, and that's one of the reasons that we like flower beds under our trees.
True.
Yeah, but it's
it's constant reseeding, because you have to reseed in spring and usually fall.
And fall. But not with zoysia, because it's tough. It'll hang in there. But
zoysia does not like the sun either, so does not like the shade, excuse me.
Yeah.
It's a sun grass.
And the downside of that, which is important to some of us who like to have a bit of a green lawn, is that zoysia will turn brown in the wintertime, just as Bermuda does, and it's really difficult to overseed. So if you like to have a green turf in the spring and a little bit during the winter, then you probably don't want to plant zoysia, but boy, is it gorgeous in the dead of summer.
Yes, and it's it's fine leaves and very thick.
Yeah, and it's very, very tough. And it looks a little bit like fescue, so in the transition zone, it doesn't...
Some of it gets mixed.
Yeah, some of it gets mixed, but also it doesn't scream, oh, I am fescue and I am zoysia. So it really, really is beautiful. Okay, we're going to take a break here, and boy, do I have a surprise for you in the backyard. Now, I want to do an outfit of the day here, first of all, because I want to stand in front of this absolutely magnificent chimney. Isn't it gorgeous? But also because I want to share with you one of the best finds I've discovered in a very, very long time. But let's start top to bottom. So these are the sunglasses Leah and I love so much that we bought online, and I will, of course, put a link. But this is the top I wanted to show you. In fact, I love it so much, I bought 3 more. Now, why do I love it? Well, I love it because it's got SPF 45 or 50 in it. It's very loose. I sized up. This is a medium. I love it because it's got these thumb holes. So not only is it protecting your skin on your arms, your shoulders, etc., but it's also protecting your hands then. Don't look at my dirty fingernails. I've been pulling weeds. And it's very, very light, and it's very comfortable. So even on a very hot day, it's not too sweltering. It comes in all different colors. I bought I think 2 in white and 1 in pink, and I may order more simply because they're just wonderful, and I imagine I'll have them on constant rotation as I'm working in and out of the garden. And in fact, I keep one by the front door so I can just slip it on if I've got on a shirt that is sleeveless or something. And then my belt, I think I got at Nordstrom Rack. These are thrifted shorts from J. Crew. And my cute boots, these are High C, and we will put links to as many of these things as possible below. Now this is truly a magnificent, incredible, there are not enough superlatives I can use to discuss this backyard. It's very near and dear to me, starting with this incredible custom-made gate predicated on an antique one that I will show you shortly. And the hardware on it is antique and was gifted to her by her son. But look at how it has these panels. So you can leave this open, and I'm going to step out of the way, Stuart, so you can get a view of this oasis back here.
All right.
I mean, talk about serenity, talk about instant relaxation. It feels like a combo of the English countryside and maybe Bali, I'm not sure what, but come in this place, Stuart. And first of all, just give people just an overview of the first impression that they get when they walk through the gate. Really gorgeous. And now let's meet back up with my friend Carol over here, who's going to tell us a little bit about some of the garden ornaments that you've got back here. And let's start with this incredible table. Oh my goodness, this is fabulous. Yeah.
My husband Charles and I had a priority of traveling, and so we always took trips every year.
Well, you're always gone. Yeah.
Marriage of 62 years.
Oh, wow.
And this was a table that my husband found, and I was with him, in an arts and crafts training school in Jordan. And the school was started by the then Queen Noor, and they taught people to do traditional crafts in ways that were also very marketable. And so this is a mosaic table, handmade, and it's the story of growing grapes and making wine, and with a lot of native animals, wild animals in Jordan. And so it's become the garden table.
So Carol, Charles was a geologist, correct?
Yes, geological engineer.
And you were a teacher.
Yes.
And did you
Early
teach
childhood.
early childhood? And she is also a very accomplished harpist.
Oh, wow.
One
Amateur.
well, I wouldn't call it that. And one of the best read people I know. And I think that's another way we got to be friends.
Yes, we did 3 books.
Through books, because we would share books back and forth. We would, how many gardening books did we share back and forth? And when you see the inside of her house, Stuart, if you would just kind of point the camera towards those French doors, which go inside to a room that is just, well, it's a sitting area, a TV room, but it also houses your very extensive, whose is more extensive, yours or mine, our garden libraries?
Oh, I don't know. We'd have to have a count.
We'd have to have a count. And probably as we would go through our libraries, I would find some of yours and you would find some of mine. Because it was so influential, I think, reading all of those books and learning about different kinds of gardening styles.
Oh, I think it's fun.
I think it's fun.
It's like going on another garden tour.
And I
When you're
think
reading those books, and even though it's not the style you're going to have in your garden, I really learned to love them and appreciate them.
And I think that that was another thing from a mentoring standpoint in terms of teaching me so much about different things in Oklahoma. And believe me, she knows more plant names that I have long since forgotten. And I don't know how you retain them. It's a thing to marvel at.
I think
But-
it's just probably my love for plants and gardens, because I certainly don't remember a lot of other things. So it must have to do with
So, yes, selective memory. But I think part of the garden mentoring process was not just the horticulture of it, and I still have so much to learn, but those things that you taught me about, Linda. Read about gardens, read about styles of gardens, read about the history of gardens, read about Oklahoma gardens, but read about gardens around the world, and whenever you travel, go visit gardens. And I think that was one of the most influential things you shared with me. So speaking of inspiration, give us the initial inspiration. And as we talk, Stuart, feel free to roam around and preferably not fall in.
When we moved here, there was a cyclone fence, and on both sides were the wooden fences.
Okay, what's a cyclone fence?
It's that iron fence
Okay.
that has aluminum poles, and it's about a 3-inch square chain. It's also known as a chain link.
Okay,
fence.
okay.
And a small patch of grass, and at the back of the garden by the waterfall was a covered patio. So if you went back there, you looked at the house. And so when we built the pool in '86, we sort of reversed the view from looking at the garden from the house and this small seating area back towards the waterfall and the rock wall at the back, which is really my neighbor's back wall, but I certainly take advantage of it.
Oh, it's fabulous.
And I think it's a big piece of the charm of this garden
yeah.
for me.
Yeah, very much. That probably was my first lesson in a borrowed view, in borrowing the view. I'm going to get a little bit closer to you, Carol, to not only because I always want to be close to you, but because I'm the one mic'd up. And I wasn't sure you were even going to be here when we got here, so this is such a treat for me. So who helped you come up with the layout and the design for it?
Well, I had a very bad back, and I was swimming for exercise at the Y. And so I came up on the idea of having a lap pool here. And I saw a picture in a magazine that had boulders around it. And so I came up with that idea and that picture, and I asked John Fluitt and to help me design a garden around that. And so he and Bill Renner,
Yes.
who they had designed the first garden in front, not the current one that you just saw, but the first one. And so, and my friendship with Bill and John was very fundamental in me establishing sort of my garden style. And then I've worked with John through the years, and with his new associate Roger Runge, and I just tell them what they know what I like now.
Yes.
And I like this garden to look almost tropical in the summer, and then when some of the plants, like the big leafed rice paper plant, dies to the ground in the winter, it's a true perennial, are gone, then I sort of look at it with impressionistic eyes and hope it looks a little oriental or Asian.
It's what I love about it, in addition to all of those things and all of those muses that you have for the garden, is that it in no way seems out of context for the context of your home, because all of the stone mirrors the stone on your house. It's the same style, or it's of the same provenance, and it blends beautifully with that stone wall in the back. And it just is, I don't know if one of the words you thought about initially in your inspiration for the garden was serene, but this is about as serene as you get. I feel almost like I am at one of those meditation places where you go and...
So I come here for several reasons to be in the garden, and one is I eat out here in the summer as much as I can. So sometimes in the spring, before it's too hot, I'll eat all 3 meals right here with this view at the waterfall. And then in the secret garden, I have a small little iron chair, and when I really want to be contemplative or relaxing or thinking about something I should work out, I go there. And then there's a bench at the back of the garden, and I can still sit there and look at the very different view of the house than when we first moved here.
And we'll show that secret garden here momentarily. I love the way you have all of the trees beautifully pruned, and they seem to be varieties that aren't in any way messy or very messy with the pool. Is that true or not?
No, in this pool, it's not a big space, but it has the same motor as all pools, and it really self-cleans pretty well. Plus, it's a very small area, and there's this 2-story garage apartment and the rock wall and fences, so I don't get as much wind. I get the wind up higher, but I don't get as much wind in the planting areas, the beds.
Yeah, and wind is not always our friend
and wind
in Oklahoma.
And it's present most every month of the year, with the exclusion of July and August.
Where it's just kind of a deadly still. So, okay, now let's go back to the secret garden, and as you enter the secret garden, you see the mirrored doors that is at the very end, which reflects the garden back upon you as you enter. And those doors, correct me if I'm wrong, those panels were the inspiration for the custom-made gate that you had that leads into the backyard.
Yes, they were. I bought them from a gentleman who imported objects from Mexican haciendas, old ranch houses, and those were gates or doors into the house. And I had them right here as the gates into the garden for years, but they're pegged with wood. There's not a nail in them.
Oh, wow.
And so they had some problems with not sagging and swaying. So when we built this fence, the carpenter copied them as much as he can for the present garden gate. And then I had this idea to hang them on the wall back there. And when I did that, the left side, which you would see yourself when you would turn the corner, I had them wedge the mirror out a bit so you wouldn't see yourself at first.
Oh,
and you would
wonderful.
think it was a continuous long path.
Yeah. Well,
because it's just a little slot of land beyond the garage apartment.
Well, and it's very, very shaded back there.
Yes.
It feels very secluded. It's very private, and it feels as if it's just another little extra jewel in addition to the magnificent gem that is your garden. So you have an assembly of, you've got Japanese maples back here. You've got even domestica, Nandina domestica looks exotic in this backyard. You've got some that are very tall, some that are shorter. You've got a Cuba japonica.
Yes.
Um,
And this is a possum haw holly tree that is a deciduous American holly. It's native to Texas.
this guy?
And in the winter, it's covered in red berries. And it's a fun day when the flock of cedar waxwing birds come.
Oh, I
and
bet.
clean it of the berries.
so is the
It's Buddha.
is the bark is really gorgeous, or
Oh,
the
bark
trunk is really
beautiful,
gorgeous.
But there's a hole just before the yolk on the trunk, and that's the reminder of the ice storm that we had in probably 90 something, and we woke up and that branch that is now a big oval with a recessed area hole in it was lying in the pool.
Oh my
And
word!
so we cut it back, and it only had a couple of main branches, and it was very deformed. And it's grown back to this.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It was a tough year or two looking at it from the kitchen sink.
And the Japanese maple.
That is
and-
a cut leaf or thread leaf. The
Yeah.
one above our heads is just
Stuart,
the
let-
original
Can
Japanese.
we show the pot? Yeah.
Oh, that guy over there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it's just a cut leaf Japanese maple, but in one of those fabulous pots you got from John.
Yes. Well, my daughter bought these from John, Krista, and they're red ceramics, and they're really pieces of red cups, like they have at the Red Cup Cafe.
Oh,
in
my
Plassen
goodness!
in Oklahoma City. And so when you walk around and look at them closely, the tiles are all curved, and some of them have a little writing on them, but they're really masterpieces by this person who was associated with John for a long time.
And what I love about it is it's such a touchstone to Oklahoma City. That's you know Johnny. That's my son Johnny's very favorite place when he comes to write. It's
Well, you
really
have to bring Johnny over to see.
Oh,
I
yes.
have 3 of the pots that must have been, I can't imagine how many cups.
yeah. I can't, or much less how much caffeine. And the rice plant. You know, this is a tough plant because it
Yes,
can
it
be.
is. It's a perennial, and it's the rice paper plant. And if you happen to prune it, and you can sort of crush the stalks or the stems, they're very pithy, and paper used to be made from them in Asia. So they're the rice paper plant. They don't look like rice at all growing, but they're wonderful, and they bloom a very insignificant bloom. And then they have these
need to give a
incredibly
reference.
large leaves. And
Yeah, they're
one
really
thing-
large.
And-
one thing I want in my garden is a variety of leaf shape and size and color and texture.
Yes.
And so
And boy, are they magnificent after
and
a
they're
rain.
very prolific. I've probably
Yeah,
given away
yes.
20
Right.
plants from that one plant.
But after a rain, the way they capture the raindrops and the
raindrops
water is
sit in the
gorgeous.
cup by the
Yes.
stem. It's beautiful.
Yes, very, very tropical looking. Now, some people, I never had a problem with them, but some people told me that some of the sap that comes out, some people are sensitive to it. Have you heard
I've
that?
never had that experience, but I let it go wild pretty
Yeah.
much. And if I'm pruning, I usually have on gloves.
And you,
Not always, but mostly.
mostly, and you gifted me one of those. Well, this is just spectacular. This is, what kind of holly is
This is a Nellie Stevens that was planted. There are 2 of them very close
wow.
together when we built the pool, and that is the curling and peeling of the bark is from the ice, and then above it you have this dot pattern, and that's from a woodpecker.
Wow. you've used hollies brilliantly, and as Stuart and I are leaving, I want to point out the allay of Foster hollies, one of my very favorite hollies, that gives you magnificent privacy, shade, enclosure, a deep green wall against the small cutting garden that you have there. And gosh, how tall are those now? I remember when you planted them.
That, but I would
Yeah.
say they're 15 feet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we can see them from here, maybe, huh?
Yeah, well, we'll
Maybe
see.
20.
We'll allude to them on the way out.
And they also, this is something that's not common in this neighborhood. We have two driveways together with this
Narrow.
no more than 4-foot piece of grass between them. And so those hollies have really helped soften that
Yeah.
area, I think.
And the fact that they can grow in a
Yes.
small space
Yes.
is a wonderful thing. And birds love them, and they're
Yes.
relatively easy to keep pruned.
I really like berries. Some people don't. So on the Nandina and then the Fosters at Christmas are beautiful.
Yeah.
With the orangey red berry.
Yeah, and there's that concern about Nandina domestica and the cedar waxwings, that they'll gorge themselves on the Nandinas. I don't know that I've ever experienced that as a problem. Do they ever gorge so much on the possum haw that you're concerned about that, or?
No, and they don't damage the tree at all. They just clean it up. But you have this all-season interest because in the winter the tree is bare after the berries are eaten, but much of the winter it has the red berries.
Red
they
berries.
come through usually in February, March.
So a couple of things, and I don't know how many different talks I have given over the years. I allude to just how rambunctious sweet potato vine can be. And I have told many times that I have a friend who came back from summer vacation and it had skipped over the entire pool and invaded the opposite side. And if you have heard me share that little story, this is indeed that pool. And then let's close, Stuart, if you would, back here on, you have certainly influenced me. Maybe I influenced you a little bit with your topiary.
Yes, you did, very much so.
And is that a sum and substance hosta?
It is.
And then,
And then that's a oak leaf hydrangea, which I like. And that one I think is Alice. And then
Harry Lauder's.
that is a Harry Lauder walking stick bush. And I bought that in the 70s, and it was very small, about 2 feet. And it is a contorted hazelnut, so it has this very curvy
corky
stem. And then it is grafted onto a stronger root, and in the winter they look like a pretty sculpture because of all
Yeah,
the,
they're gorgeous.
the movement of the quirks and turns of the branches.
And the branches look beautiful in flower arrangements. Okay, let's close because I know we're going to get some viewers asking about, just tell us about the mosaic of different ground covers you have.
Well, this is lamium right under the pot here, but yes. And in most Oklahoma winters, it stays. It's diminished, it's lower, but it's there. In very frigid, it will disappear, but then it comes back. Then over by the turning skirt, over by the lantern and the Buddha, that is just something called ground ivy by me. It's a common name, and I don't know the botanical name. It has roots that are no longer than 1 inch, and it's a good filler, and it's easy to groom or remove, and so I've let it grow there and in this side too.
Yeah, and that was the variety in the front that
Yes.
you alluded to,
Yes, and
removing some of it.
I'm eliminating some of that in the front so that I can plant more sedum because I really like sedum and the smaller sedums in the foreground of a perennial bed.
And then you've got just different kinds of, I see purple over there. Is that oxalis?
That is
What
a plum yew that's leaning a little bit out over the pool. And another oak leaf hydrangea behind it.
Okay.
And then there's a golden boxwood on the right side of the pool. And
And
then
Stuart
at
is
the
walking.
back, yes, that's the view right now. And then at the back there is a spirit house that is illuminated at night.
Oh,
It's a little
beautiful.
wooden,
I love.
light under the coral bark Japanese maple, and that's I bought in California. It's inspired by the stone spirit houses in Thailand, and people
wow.
put them in their gardens for the spirits of their family, their ancestors.
Well, I just love the way it is. Everything is so evocative of your interests, of your travels, of your life with Charles, of your love for this neighborhood, of your love for geography, and also your just love for serenity, and most importantly, the takeaway of the importance of gardeners who give back by mentoring others. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Linda. It's
Now, I was remiss in not showing this to you earlier, but I want to make sure that I show it to you now as I'm literally heading for my car. But this is her cutting garden that really over the years, some of the specimens have grown so much that kind of belies that word. But she's got Siberian iris in here. Look at this gorgeous sunshine ligustrum. I love the fact that it's grown up seemingly almost like the one that was at John's house. She's got perilla, maybe with some Joe Pye weed in there.
It's folding foliage.
A fabulous Peruvian lily. I can't believe how large these leaves are. An antique, yes, some clematis at the back. And what was the variety of this rose again?
Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria, an antique rose, and then another one that she bought at, sadly, a nursery that closed. Yeah. From Horns, and then a clematis that grows on the wall.
Painter's palette. That's it.
Yes, and Pater's palette, and it just, and then this just kind of grows into this magnificent hedge, this magnificent alley of Foster hollies.